It does. We got
Liftoff.
attendees filing in. Welcome all.
Well, we
Thank
didn't
you.
know.
Thank you.
We didn't know. We're glad to see some relatives. I'm assuming Kathy Madsen is related to you, Keith.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're glad to have you. So while we're waiting for people to trickle in, I have a question for our audience. What is a book that you read recently that you really enjoyed? Put your answer in the chat. Would love to hear it. While we wait for us to start.
We have Joanne Cummings joining us, who was actually a panelist with us just about a month ago, and who teaches at Baylor and a former Foreign Service officer. A lot of countries, but mainly Iraq. The good sister. Danny Khalil. I think Danny should get the award for tuning in the most, because I really appreciate Danny for tuning in. Elaine, Janet, thank you for tuning in. Liz, Nikki.
Oh, there's all sorts of good books here.
And Dr. Pace. Thanks for tuning in, Dr. Pace. The Glass Kingdom. That's, yeah, I've heard of that one.
I have not heard of these ones, so I'm going to have to add them to my list.
I don't know if you saw, Samantha, but someone tagged me because Congressman Hurd, former Congressman Hurd, has a new book out coming in February.
Ooh.
Is it CIA-ish or based or?
I don't believe it is.
Okay.
That would make sense though, considering his background.
I sent his staff a few emails asking him to collaborate a little bit, but turns out the congressman doesn't have enough time.
It's called American Reboot, an idealist guide to getting big things done.
I like it. We'll add it to the list.
Yeah, sounds interesting.
All right. Paulina Lagos, thank you for tuning in. Jason. Andrea Garcia, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sharing your Democracy in Chains. That sounds interesting.
Sounds intense.
That's
like
like
an important
nonfiction.
read. Yes.
Definitely.
Also, tell us where you're from, where you're tuning in from. We have our guests are from all over the country, from East Coast, West Coast, the South, and also San Antonio. Let us know where you're tuning in from and share your thoughts. And we're going to get started here in less than a minute. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A function. Nottingham, North, New Hampshire. Welcome.
We had someone in Washington too.
Snohomish, yeah.
How do you pronounce that?
Snohomish.
Nahomish.
Next to Sammamish, which is next.
I was not going to.
Next to Snoqualmie and Sammamish. Yeah, great names.
We got Baltimore, Maryland too. Welcome, you guys.
Donna. Hi, Donna. Great to see you.
Well, I'm actually from New Hampshire. I've never heard of, what was it, Nottingham, North New Hampshire?
Yeah, Nottingham.
Nottingham, okay.
I can't see who it's from, but we appreciate you for tuning in.
Liz. I can't pronounce names, so I'm not going to try to butcher it, but 25 minutes west of Portsmouth, which I also feel like I mispronounced.
No,
All right.
Portsmouth is right.
Sweet. I love it.
What's that?
Okay, I think we are ready, you guys.
All right. Welcome to the World Affairs Council's book club program for the month of June. We have an exciting panel of guests tuning in from all over the country and a spectacular moderator who's going to ask questions and have a vibrant discussion about the books they have written. Before we do that, I do want to thank all of you for tuning in. You're also those on, and also for those who are tuning in on social media. Thank you for watching or listening to our special program. We can't do this without our viewers and supporters, so we appreciate you for supporting us, whether it's your time or your treasure. You're always welcome to learn more about the World Affairs Council by becoming a member and also making a gift that is significant to you. And those links are provided in the chat room. Getting right into it, I want to introduce Samantha here in a few seconds, but I do want to ask, what do Haiti, Spain, bioterrorism, the Middle East, and Colombia all have in common? Well, you're about to all find out. Our guests are acclaimed authors who are bringing with them captivating stories that take us all over the world and subject matters that are really intense and exciting. And Samantha Scory, who is my colleague at the World Affairs Council, will be moderating the panel. She's a product of Trinity University and also received her master's at St. Mary's. She's currently the International Programs Coordinator for the World Affairs Council of San Antonio, and she will be leading the discussion today. Samantha, take it away.
Thank you so much. Hello, all. Welcome to the World Affairs Council of San Antonio's book club, or unofficial book club, I guess. We're featuring John Casey, Joyce Yaro, Hans Trujillo, and Keith Madsen, who are here with us today. So thank you, guys. We're so excited to have you here. We're so thankful to have your support and your participation today. And thank you all for donating your time, energy, and support here. We're so happy to work with you on this fun program. So now, welcome to book club. I'm going to start and introduce, each of our wonderful authors. So Joyce, pleased to introduce author of International Suspense, Joyce Yaro. Library Journal describes Joyce's novels as appealing to readers who enjoy unusual stories with an international setting. So exactly this. Her latest offering is Zahara and the Lost Books of Light, in which Seattle journalist Alienor Crespo travels to Spain to apply for citizenship as a descendant of the Jews expelled in 1492, very different year. Alienor not only uncovers her own family history, she finds a hidden treasure trove of medieval Hebrew and Arabic books that were saved from the fires of the Inquisition. Introducing Keith Madsen. He's using his retirement to pursue his lifelong interest of writing fiction. He's had a love of writing all his life, used his writing talents in a variety of ways, including composing materials for religious education, writing plays for use in community theater. Now he's written a book. His background in drama has helped him with character development and his dramatic touch in writing both short stories and novels. He finds that being part of helping characters come alive is one of life's greatest pleasures. He's visited Haiti 5 times while helping build a grade school there, and in the process became fascinated by Haitian culture and history, a fascination which played a central role in writing The Sons and Daughters of Toussaint. John Casey here goes by JJ. He's a novelist and Pushcart Prize nominated poet. He's the author of the Devolution Trilogy, a psychological spy thriller series, Raw Thoughts, a mindful fusion of poetic and photographic art, and recently released Meridian, a Raw Thoughts book. Today, he's going to talk with us a bit about his second book in his trilogy titled Evolution, which was published this last month. Of note, John is a veteran combat pilot and former Defense Intelligence Agency diplomat and a member of the board of the World Affairs Council of San Antonio. So we love having you, John. Lastly, but not leastly, Hans Trujillo, who was born in Bogota, Colombia, 6 days before Neil Armstrong would land his feet on the moon. Since he was a child, his parents taught him the love for literature, and at an early age, he devoured the immortal works of Homer, Cervantes, Oscar Wilde, Edgar Allan Poe, and Garcia Marquez. His book, Never Play with Death, is the novel in which this Creative makes his debut with the literary genre, bursting with the work full of life experiences, anecdotes collected over the years, and a very particular charge of imagination that makes the story a very fascinating one. So I want to thank you all for being here. I also want to say for anyone that registered is here today, you are now in the running to win one of these amazing books from our authors. So stick around, enjoy, interact, and we'll let you know who gets to come home with one of these books. Although I guess we're already home, but who gets to leave with one of these books. So thank you all.
No,
Okay,
thank you.
so-
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Yes.
you.
It's really great to be here.
And
So
let me
I'm
tell you something, Samantha. You're my
Yeah.
hero. You're my hero now because you read the entire 4 books at record time. So that's impressive.
I had a few weeks to do it at least. So
No, very
I
good,
was happy
very
to do so. I love being able to read. I love being able to share all of these beautiful books with the rest of the San Antonio community and, you know, people in New Hampshire now too. So I'm excited to kind of dive right in. So I have questions for you guys if you're ready.
Fire away.
Okay. So introductory question is, how did you get involved in writing? I'll let Joyce answer first.
I got involved in writing because I rode the subway quite a bit as a child, even maybe at the age of 9 or 10, taking it down to Manhattan to meet my mom for lunch. And I would write poetry on the subway and on buses. And gradually I moved into writing short stories, songs, and eventually, a bit later in life, I started to write novels. It seemed that I wanted to expand my use of vocabulary, but keep certain of the poetic elements. And that's what I've tried to do in my literary fiction and suspense stories.
Keith, do you want to go next?
Sure. How did I get involved in writing? Well, I got hooked by reading. That's how I got involved in it. As a kid, I always enjoyed reading. And one of my favorite books as an adolescent was the novel on Daniel Defoe's novel on, oh gosh, what's the name of that novel again? Anyway, about the guy that
Wasn't that good, apparently.
the guy that gets stranded on an island with his boy Friday. Anyway, I read that novel and I got into it and felt like what it would be like to be on an island. So all sorts of stories about adventures, and I always would put myself into the adventure and
Was
kind of
this
imagine
Robinson
what I
Crusoe?
might have done. And so that kind of developed my desire to write myself.
We have audience participation saying the book was Robinson Crusoe.
Robinson Crusoe, yes.
Thank you, Liz.
A classic, total classic.
John, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, sure. So I didn't actually start anything that you would call creative writing until my mid-40s. Up until that point, I always had kind of an idea that I could write well, but it had been limited to the writing that was required for my work, you know. So after my pilot days were over, I had a number of staff jobs in the diplomat stint, and so the writing is all, you know, reporting and you know, authoring strategy and things like that, and it's really all dry, boring stuff. During one of my last assignments, I was in Africa, and I wrote a poem, and the poem was funny, and I read it to a couple of people, and they laughed, and they enjoyed it, and I got something from that. I felt like I had created something that was worthwhile, right? I made some people laugh, and so then I wrote another one, and after a while, I had about 150 poems, and I was just reaching into myself, and it was all just coming out, and eventually someone who knows what good poetry is took a look at them and said, it's not bad. You should keep writing. And so that's kind of the genesis of where my writing came from.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. Hans, would you like to jump in?
Yes. I think as kid, I ended up writing by reading a lot. Like I became an avid reader at a very young age, thanks to my dad, who used to tell us stories, one story after another at the table, like always at lunchtime. And he used to do it in a very, epic and fascinating way. So that made me rush to his book stand to pick the book he was talking about at the table. And that's how I became an avid reader. And then I started advertising, and that's what I do. Every day I have to write like a lot of scripts and stories, short stories to engage people into products and services. So that makes me develop a set of skills, for writing. So I guess that's why I ended up being a writer.
Can I insert here, Hans, you were talking about your dad reading to you. And my dad read to us, we'd go on trips and we'd camp out, and he'd read to us around the campfire. So he read all the Tarzan books,
Nice.
where it always ends with a knife over Tarzan's head, just being ready to pose, and then that would be the end of the chapter. And so he'd read that. He's a great reader. And so that got me interested also.
Yeah, that is really cool. That my dad used to tell us the stories, like not reading them, but telling us. And he was this storytelling skills that was amazing. He was like, it was like he was telling us about a movie or something. So it was really cool. And that's how I got hooked and start, reading about the books he was referring to. And it started with the Iliad and all the classics. So that's how I start reading. So very important.
Everyone out there, always keep reading, for sure. So Joyce, I have a question for you. So your story exposes the history of Spain and pushes this beautiful story of your main character, Aliénor. And I was wondering what your background is with Spain, what kind of drew you to telling her story? And then something I heard about there being a Ray Bradbury connection there too.
Yeah, sometimes an author, you have everything you need that's right in front of you. And in my case, it was a song, a newspaper article, and a science fiction book. And the song was the main connection, beginning connection with Spain. Cuando Reina Rod was written in Ladino. It has this beautiful lilting melody, and it comes from the time when the Jews were expelled from Spain. And it really made me curious about that time and how there was Arabic and all different kinds of words in Ladino. It's like a melting pot of a language. And so I performed the song with my group, and often we would say it's about the birth of Abraham. And often we would introduce the song by saying, we wish that all the Abrahamic religions would recognize that they have the same founding father, so why not get along? So it goes a little bit like this. Cuando rey Nimrod al campo salía, miraba en el cielo y en la estrella. Abraham vino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. So I fell in love with Spain because of that song. And then I discovered some people in my neighborhood who were Sephardic, and that several of them were applying for citizenship to Spain because it's been offered to the Jews as a way of reparations, asking them to return after being expelled in 1492. And I started thinking, well, what if there was a main character in my book who did apply for Spanish citizenship, and she was a journalist? And what if she had this special gift where she could see through the eyes of her female ancestors? And these are called viejitas. And so Aliénor Crespo came into being. And then when I wrote the prologue, which I'm going to read, a little bit from, I realized that I had been very influenced by Ray Bradbury, because in Fahrenheit 451, which is about a society where the firemen actually burn books, he's a rescuer. The hero is a rescuer of books. And there are all these people called the book people that memorize the classics that had been burned, and they're walking along the side of the river. It was a beautiful scene in the movie too. And so I started thinking about the books that were burned in Spain, and what if they had somehow survived into the present time? Where would they be? Who would be taking care of them? Why were they burned? And so that became the premise of the book. And do you want me to read the prologue now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So this is Granada, Spain, October 1499. The windows overlooking the Plaza de Bibarambla have been tightly shuttered against the moonlight. Pavestones suffocate under a deluge of books, codices with wooden covers, as well as loose pages ripped from their bindings. Handwritten in Arabic, Aramaic, and Hebrew, many of these works are illuminated with gold leaf or inscribed with exquisite calligraphy, only to be thrown together like corpses in a heap. Thousands of tomes lie strewn about the square, stacked as high as the shelves they once occupied in the libraries of Al-Andalus. The poetry of Muhammad ibn Hani, works of philosophy by Moses Maimonides, and commentaries on Aristotle, scientific treatises, Muslim and Jewish holy books, all judged as heretical and in equal peril. The smell of incipient violence taints the air. The forbidden works are to be burned in public view for the purpose of instilling fear. If you insist on practicing your religion and fail to convert, you will share the same fate. Two ethereal forms float under the arc of the ears leading into the square. Above them, a dozen severed earlobes caked in blood hang from the keystone, trophies from the day's executions. Ibn al-Arabi, the visionary Sufi philosopher, is clad in a russet brown robe. His piercing eyes are those of a devout skeptic. Beside him glides the Jewish Kabbalist, Rabbi Abraham Abulafia, draped in a flowing white gown with wide sleeves resembling wings. Bearded and wearing tightly wound turbans, the figures hover above the ground in a diaphanous mist, incorporeal and invisible to the untrained eye. They converse in Arabic, although words are not strictly necessary for teleporting mystics, tarrying in a world more than 300 years beyond their time. Tomorrow, when the sun sets, 1,000,000 tomes will be set to the torch, laments Ibn al-Arabi. Countless copies of the Quran, immortal love songs, and poetry, and works written by Jewish and Muslim scholars on the subjects of philosophy, medicine, religion, history, botany, astronomy, mathematics, and geography will soon surrender their wisdom to the fire. I fear light of the intellect will be among them. Abulafia surveys this chaos in the square as if searching for his masterpiece. So kind of you to worry about my work when yours may go up in flames as well. And so the two mystics who meet in the Barambala Square, they find a way to rescue some of these books. And they use the hands of a workman, a slave, who is gradually piling all of these books up onto a scaffold. And they ask him, they appear to him, and they ask him to hide them. And eventually, as the story progresses, they're taking up the mountainside, and Alienor gets to see how the books are transported by mule all the way up into the Apujaras and into a salt mine called Zahara, where they are stored. And just one more detail, maybe to draw you into the story, is
I'm drawn already.
is the fact that the librarians of Zahara, there's a 500-year succession of librarians going all the way up into the present time. And Alienor meets some of the people, that are librarians in Zahara in the present, and becomes involved in their struggle to try to keep protecting these endangered books and heritages.
It's a beautiful story, and it really does just illustrate and go through the history of Spain and the history of, areas that you don't think about too much, and realizing the Jewish connection in Spain is something that kind of gets overlooked a lot. So thank you so much for kind of bringing it to light and putting this beautiful story to it.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, go for it.
Oh, no, you have another question, please.
Well, we got a fair amount of people in this panel, so I want to try to get to everyone.
Please
I
do.
had a question for you, Keith. So your book, The Sons and Daughters of Toussaint, which my French is not great, so you're gonna have to correct me on that. It focuses on, Haitian affairs. And I was wondering a little bit more in depth, what is your background and experience with Haiti? What kind of made you interested in this topic?
Yes, I went on 5 different mission trips to Haiti. I actually led a group of people from the churches in our area to go there. And we worked alongside the Haitians to build an elementary school. It is so important to get education in Haiti because that gives them hope, that their children can have hope. So I got down there and I met the people. And since that time, and I hear people say, well, why do you want to help Haiti? I mean, Haiti has always been poor and struggling and it's just hopeless. So why do you even want to try? And I don't believe in the word hopeless. I believe in what Margaret Mead said. She said, never doubt that a small committed group of committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And I believe in that. And I think also when you get to know people, you don't give up on them, especially the children. I fell in love with the children. I'd play with the survivors, the orphans of the earthquake down there. And I fell in love with the children. That made me want to be able to do something to bring them hope. So that's how I got involved in that story. And I wanted to present a vision of hope. So, would you like to read a section here?
Yes, absolutely. Please share.
This comes from the beginning of the book. And Toussaint is imprisoned in a French prison and playing chess. So let me read these sections. The old general gazed at the dignified officer smiling across from him and laughed in spite of himself. Cold, dark eyes looked up from the chessboard at his older opponent. Something is funny? A little, said Toussaint. You are without doubt the most powerful man in the world, Monsieur First Consul, and you brought me to this cold, wet dungeon to kill me. But here you are playing chess with me, like it mattered. I find that a little humorous. Saying so many words in this delicate condition set him into a coughing fit, which is why his opponent delayed in responding. It amuses me, and that is what is important. Power means I can do whatever amuses me, said the First Consul. Besides, chess is a very serious game. What happens in the game is a miniature of what happens in this world. Take where the game is now, for instance. Your king is alone, with none of your most important pieces to protect him. They've all either been taken or fled in some futile effort to change the inevitable. Is that not you, Toussaint? Do you not feel alone and abandoned in this dungeon? Where are your generals who pledged their allegiance to you? The French commander glanced around the little dungeon, which barely measured 7 meters by 4 meters, and appeared truly surprised at the absence of Toussaint's military. The only other person connected to the one who had once commanded the armies of Saint-Domingue was his valet, Mars Plaisir, who sat on the floor in his tattered coat about 2 meters away, shivering. And the commandeer sneered and leaned forward to Toussaint. Even your sons, where are they, O great general? Some were calling the Black Napoleon. Do your sons not stand by you? Toussaint felt as if his spirit had been ripped from his body. There was a time when both Isaac and Placide had tried to convince him to work with the French, but he knew both would be by his side now if they could. The man who sat across from him now prevented them. and it tore his heart apart. You did indeed feel alone. So they continue with their chess game, and this picks up a little later. Toussaint slowly moved a pawn ahead 2 spaces to his opponent's king's knight 5 at a diagonal from where the first consul's king sat. He cocked his head slightly to the right. Checkmate. The first consul gave a nervous laugh. Impossible! Then as he leaned forward to take a closer look, his whole body began to shake and his eyes filled with anger. He swept his right hand across the board, scattering pieces in every corner of the room. That did not happen. He shouted. He jumped up. You do not checkmate Napoleon Bonaparte with a mere pawn? Toussaint's smile only broadened. I already have, Monsieur First Consul. I already have. You may have swept me from the board, but I have thousands of pawns who remain in Saint-Domingue, and they have moved forward now as we speak to take your forces down. So that is the beginning of the book. And it's all about, it's all about his descendant saying, hey, we haven't really realized the vision. Look at Haiti. It's not what Toussaint wanted. And so he picks up the vision and brings it forward and brings hope. So that's what the book's about.
It's an incredible read. I really enjoyed it. And I actually don't think I knew much about Haiti to begin with. So this is a great way to actually learn about these amazing figures of history and a country that has been through so much, really.
Well, I'm thankful to you for being one who's read it.
I think it needs to be made into a movie with you as the actor,
yes,
too.
Yes. I'm ready.
I can tell. Speaking of wanting to be in movies, we got a great, amazing spy thriller from John Casey. So questions for you. So your newest book focuses on this terrorist-backed virus in the Middle East, which, hits a little close after this past year. So how have your previous experiences helped shape the plot of Evolution and the entire trilogy?
Okay. So I think, what Keith just described about his involvement in Haiti kind of reinforces the pretty well-known idea that if you want to write something that other people want to read, write about what you know. And so I do get that question. Well, what do you know about, the spy world and espionage and that sort of thing? And I did work for the Defense Intelligence Agency for a time. And I have been to Paris. I've lived in Paris and in Berlin, and I've been to about 40 different countries. And so there was a lot of content for me to draw from, and I had an idea for a story that was long enough that I knew I had to break it into 3 books, and I wanted it to be kind of different than your typical Tom Clancy or Robert Ludlum story. Those are great books, that they've written, but I wanted the main character to be much deeper. I wanted the depth and the complexity of the main character to be just as important, or almost as important, as the plot itself. And so there's a lot of extra language in the book that is basically that the main character thinking, right? So you're reading what he's thinking, and it's not obvious to the other characters in the book, but in the end, you end up learning a lot about what goes on in Michael Dolan's mind. And I drew a lot from myself for that too. I was always one to compartmentalize, and you could say that I had a bit of a fractured psyche, maybe I'm being a little too hard on myself. But the bottom line is, I think I generated a character that's interesting from that standpoint.
Absolutely. And was there a portion you wanted to share with us as well?
Yeah, so I'm working on the production right now for the audiobook for Evolution. So the hardcover and the paperback are both out on Amazon, Books A Million, Target, everywhere. And then I have a fantastic narrator, Tom Campbell. So you can get more information on my website, johnjcasey.com, but Tom's website is tcaudio.com, and you'll see Devolution there. And so he and I are almost done with the production, and I have a little piece. Now, this comes from about 2/3 of the way through the book, and it is a major turning point. It's not really, it's not going to ruin the book for you, but it's a tense scene. So here we go.
She unlocked the door and went just inside, then turned around. He leaned in and kissed her, a deep, meaningful kiss. He let go of the door and melted into his arms. Their embrace was interrupted as a violent kick to the middle of Dolan's back slammed both of them against the partially closed door, into the room and onto the floor. The door smacked the inside wall and bounced back, caught by the left hand of the man who struck him. He stepped just inside the room and leveled a pistol with his right hand at Dolan, still holding the door. The barrel of the pistol looked oddly long with the attached silencer. What happened next took less than a half second. Anne was dazed, on her hands and knees. Dolan's first instinct was to sweep at the man's legs with his right foot, knock him down before he could get the shot off. But he wasn't fast enough. As he began the maneuver, the man squeezed off 2 rounds, the first impacting Dolan's back at the body armor plate just below his left scapula. The vest did what it was supposed to do, but the force of the bullet slammed him back to the floor. He pulled the trigger again. At the same instant, Dolan heard 2 additional muffled shots as his arm was forced upwards, his weapon dropping to the floor. The bullet struck the ceiling, and a few white crumbles of plaster fell to the carpet. Welker, thank God, Dolan thought. He was gasping in pain, but managed to twist around. But it wasn't Welker. It was the Slavic man Welker had noted from before, the one drinking coffee outside his office building at the university. As Dolan reached for the dropped weapon, the assassin fell forward on top of him. Dolan quickly pushed him off, and from a seated position, he took aim at the second man.
So this scene is at a real turning point in the book, and it takes place in the Ritz-Carlton in Berlin, Germany, very close to the U.S. Embassy where I used to work, and I have been to events in the Ritz-Carlton, and it's just another example of how, you're right about the places that you have been and the things that you've done and the experiences that you have, taken part in. And I try not to break away from that too much, although much of Evolution does happen in areas where I don't have that much experience, in Algeria and Jordan. And that's where that's where the research comes in. There's a lot of research that goes into a good book, to fill in the gaps if you don't have all of the experience yourself. So,
does that include getting to travel to a bunch of different places to do research?
I wish, except for the fact that I wrote this book basically during the whole COVID epidemic, I started writing it just beforehand, but no, there isn't much travel. And besides, I know people, I can ask questions, and the internet is so full of information these days. So.
Well, speaking of travel, I just want to go to Colombia after reading Han's book. So, question for you, Han. It's a beautiful story and beautiful country that if you've never been to, would recommend. It's a gorgeous experience. So your main character, who goes by the nickname of Lino, he brings back the dead through his photography in this fantastical realismo mágico kind of setting in Bogotá, Colombia. So how did the setting of Colombia, how did the magical realism of South America kind of shape Lino's story?
Well, I was influenced by magical realism like a lot. Like I'm a big fan of our Nobel Prize, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I know all his work, and I could say that he influenced all my work. He influenced greatly, and he impacted my writing style, like his narrative, his creativity, the way he develops characters. I love it, and he played a big role in shaping my writing style. And that's pretty much it.
Well, you, instead of doing a reading, you have a whole teaser trailer for your book.
Oh yes, I'm not gonna read any part of my book. I prefer to show this teaser, so you can see like a teaser of the story, and you don't have to listen to this British accent. So please go ahead.
Put it on.
What would you do if you took the only known picture of death? Where would you go if it started chasing you like your shadow? What would you say when you have no choice but to face it? This daring photographer will soon discover that you should never play with death. From the winning novel in the International Latino Book Awards in Los Angeles and the Strouds Arts Book Festival in New Orleans comes a shocking story where reality and fiction merge together to make you confront your deepest fears. Never play with death.
So I was inspired by my grandpa, who, as my dad, was a great storyteller, and he used to tell us the story of the man who brought the amazing art of photography to his town. He was born and raised in a coffee town in Colombia, and in the late 40s, early 40s, this guy arrived with this camera and start like capturing moments of time in paper, and that made the people went crazy when they saw that. So my grandpa used to tell me that story, and I was always imagining it as a movie. I was saying, wow, this could be a great movie, and the story remained on the back of my head for years, until one day I heard the calling, I guess, and when I had the right set of skills, I sat down and wrote it.
I have to say that after reading your book, Hans, I felt like I had seen the movie. A lot of images burned in my brain.
That trailer is fantastic.
Yeah, very well done. It's it's got a Hollywood feel to it.
Yeah, actually, John, I wrote it as a screenplay first, and then, like, at that time I didn't know anyone who can help me with the screenplay, until one day I met the publisher who who ended up publishing my novel, and he encouraged me to turn the screenplay into a novel, and that's how the novel were born. But yeah, it started as a screenplay. So I think for you and your trilogy, like, you have a big chance, man.
All right. We'll talk later about how to convert a book into
Absolutely.
screenplay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything I can do to help you, I'm right here.
Hans,
We'll
what I
be back in a
especially enjoyed-
year with all the movies.
I'm going to do it 3 times, though.
What I especially enjoyed about the book, Hans, was your use of humor. You know, you're dealing with death, but you still used a lot of really good humor. And that's kind of important when you're dealing with something like death.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people, when I introduce them with the book, everybody thinks that it's a horror movie. There is like a terrible story, and I go, no, this is so fun to read. It's full of dark humor and very particular characters and situations. Is anything but terror. So yeah. Thank you for your comment, Keith.
Well, I have more questions for each of you. What lesson are you hoping your readers will get out of your respective books?
Okay, you just want a general answer from anybody who wants to volunteer on that?
Yeah, jump in.
Okay. Well, again, don't give up on people, and don't give up on Haiti. I believe that they've got hope for a future, and I believe it's going to happen, but hope believes in what is not seen, so don't give up on it.
So I don't know that psychological spy thrillers. I don't know if I can generate a good answer for you. And by the way, they are psychological spy thrillers because of what I told you earlier, that the main character has the depth that he does. But one of the other things that I hope you noticed, Samantha, was there's some philosophy kind of layered in, and there's some, religion that's kind of woven in a little bit. Maybe not religion so much as spirituality, and so I did insert some important topics, I think, that I wanted to be just something that the reader would think about, but also it was important to the development of the main character, and one of those was essentially the true nature of love, believe it or not. In actually, that's in Devolution. So you didn't read that part, but anyway, so there's some interesting nuggets in there that.
Well, John, what I especially liked about your spy thriller is, unlike a lot of spy thrillers where the guy is so bigger than life and perfect and all knowing and all seeing and all doing, that you wrote the story about a human being who had a dedication and some skills and got it done. But he was a human being, and
Yeah.
I like reading that.
Thank you. Yeah, he's definitely a little bit broken. Like all of us, I like to say we're all a little bit crazy, at least a little bit crazy.
And vulnerable, yeah.
What makes life fun and exciting, and every day is a surprise because of it.
So for Zahara, I think one of the themes that runs through the book is that even though the victors write history, basically, that it's the artists and philosophers and poets who really create culture and identity, and that we need to stay in touch somehow with that in spite of all the conflicts that happen, politically, etc., that this is our treasure as human beings.
Yeah, I really appreciated its contemporary application, because you wrote about people of different cultures and faiths coming together and respecting each other. And boy, we need that message today.
Yeah, I discovered that in Spain there actually is a ceremony that people participate in the square to commemorate those books that were burned. And I hadn't even known about it. I think it's a small group, but someone wrote to me about it recently. So I'm going back and I'm going to try to meet them.
Nice.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to read Sahara, and I was impressed. Joyce must have done an exhaustive research in order to write that novel. It's amazingly accurate, and when it comes to depict the historical context where she recreated the plot, is impressive.
Oh, thank you, Hans.
Yeah.
And by the way, you are a wonderful singer.
Really?
I didn't know how that would work out, but I couldn't resist.
Yeah, Zahara had, I couldn't help but think it was, this new, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom type of
Yeah.
book. It had that feel to it. Now, totally different story, obviously, but it was adventure. It was really adventurous in more ways than one and on different levels. And so that's what I enjoyed the most about it. It was just really adventurous, and that made it super interesting.
That's quite a compliment coming from you.
Thank you.
Agreed.
So to answer the opening question that Armin said of what brings us all together, what connects us, you guys are part of this book collective called Telltale. Can you tell us what your collective aim to do is?
Well, we do events together like this one, which John spearheaded, and I'm so grateful to him for opening this door to us. And I think we have about 10 members, all of whom are authors. We have a bookshop. We're an affiliate on bookshop.org where people can find our books. And we do events. It's called Telltale. Well, John named us. So why don't you tell us why you named us that, John?
I don't. I just started thinking, what's a catchy name that means something that's somehow self-descriptive, and if there's a double entendre that I can throw in, all the better. And so, what do? Well, we tell tales, but telltale, the word by itself it has this. I just can't help but think of the poem, The Telltale Heart, and how deep and dark and mysterious it is. We came together for several reasons. We wanted to help each other. We wanted to determine the best way to market ourselves and our writing, but we also wanted to give back. And that's what this is about, right? Providing some sort of some levels of entertainment to those that find these things interesting, and to offer our books at discounts for those that read on bookshop.org, because they are discounted there. They're cheaper there than they're going to be anywhere else, and also just to support each other and to share. This is what I like. I like sharing the behind the scenes stuff, right? What compelled you to write this? What is the importance behind that book? What is the underlying philosophy of what you've written? And these are the types of things that we can talk about in events like this, that we post on Facebook and Instagram and things like that. And it's organized. So the quality is better, it's more robust, and we get new ideas from each other. So it's all these things, and Telltale is the name.
Telltales reminds me that storytelling is probably the oldest form of entertainment that people have. In any culture, people would tell stories. Like Hans was talking about his father telling stories. That was entertainment before television and radio and internet. That was entertainment. And I think it's still entertainment. And storytellers that we bond together with give us support by encouraging our own creativity when we see their creativity. And this is a very creative group.
Mhm.
And some of them are with us now. I don't think we have time to call all of them out, but we'll definitely be in touch with them.
Okay, well, we are slowly finishing up our hour very quickly, actually. And Armin's gonna pop on and declare our winners.
All right.
Thank you all. Thank you for such a wonderful discussion. And the only thing missing was time. That went by so quickly. Okay, so let us go alphabetically. First, John's book, Evolution. Let's see who the lucky winner is. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Leah Badgley. We have your email, so we will contact you to deliver.
Washingtonian.
Yay!
All right.
Go, Leah.
And by the way, Armin, these are all signed by the author, so
They are.
a little something special.
All right. Next, we have Keith Matson's book right here. You can't see it because here, I'll put it right there. All right. And the winner is Elizabeth Lazo.
Woo-hoo!
All right. And next, you're testing my alphabetical skills here. Next, we have Hans's book, Never Play with Death. All right. Let's see who we have here. Who is the lucky winner? Donna Stramella.
All right, Donna.
All right. And last but not least, Joyce Yarrow's book right here. You can see that right there. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that, Lyde. All right. And we have Paul Pace.
Cool.
Paul
Enjoy
Pace,
it.
Dr. Paul
Enjoy
Pace.
it, Paul. Yeah.
All right.
Right. And I know where you live, Paul, so I will deliver that and maybe grab a bottle of wine while I'm there too.
Oh.
All right.
Whoa, huh?
So,
Congratulations to all of you. And thank you for being so generous with not only providing Samantha and myself the books, but also for the audience. Very much appreciate you for taking time to write the books and also for making time for the World Affairs Council of San Antonio. Thank you, Samantha, for doing an exceptional job, not only reading those books in a short amount of time, but also for doing a great job in leading the discussion. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank
Joyce,
you.
Keith, Hans, stay cool. I know, and also John, we're all, it's also warm here. So I know you all, Hans, you're in Florida, and Joyce and Keith, you're in Washington State, and JJ's right here in San Antonio. So thank you all for your support. Thank you all for watching. Our next program is going to be in person, so keep a lookout for that. Thank you for tuning in and for supporting the World Affairs Council for San Antonio.
Thank you, Armin.
Thank you, Armin.
thank you,
very much.
Samantha. Samantha, you
Samantha,
run a
it's an honor.
forming circus really well.
Happy to be here. We're so happy to have these conversations with you guys. Thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah.
And I
Been an
will see
honor.
you at the next
Thank you.
one.